Hey viewers, my name's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we are talking about Scientology, and I'm making this face because you'll hear in a minute. Sierra's here with us, which is nice. We've talked about Laurie Cabot on this channel, we've talked about Aleister Crowley, we've talked about Christianity, we've talked about Buddhism, we've talked about all these different things which have people behind them, real people. So if we were ever to... Your tail's in the way. So if we were ever to say something negative, we know that there are people out there, who really believe these things. However, this is the first time that I've ever been actually a little creeped out to talk about it because of the history of this specific organization being really aggressive against their critics. And so, that being said, I understand why the questioner said if it's possible to address it publicly. And I absolutely had no idea before I actually started researching for this video today. So the question is, have you ever addressed opinions or thoughts on Scientology with all the stuff coming out in the media and news about it? I've been reevaluating my thoughts about it. This person considers themselves a very open-minded person and very accepting of religion as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, but this one has them kind of thinking differently about it because of all the controversy around this religion and the stories that you hear either way. As always, the exact text will be in the description along with the links that I'm looking at. You guys know me, I like to look at multiple sides of a story. And since I don't know much at all about Scientology, except the stuff that did come out with the whole Tom Cruise media stuff, I started with the Scientology website, Scientology.org. I wanted to see what the religion actually says about itself. On every page there is a video that comes up. It almost looks like a commercial, and it's explaining different things, or it's, advertising for it. And there's very pretty people in the videos and things like that. So I watched the first one and then quickly got annoyed with them popping up every time I wanted to read something. But that first video that comes up says this is not about magic or mysticism, it's about knowledge. What you see, what you feel, what you know to be true for you. And the video has, an image of a girl throwing her head back to the rain and feeling the rain on her face. It's about what you see and what you feel. And so right there, that's what a lot of we as pagans tend to say about our religion. It's about the natural. It's about what we can actually see and feel. It's not about that supernatural kind of stuff that people think it's about. So that interested me right away, that all these religions, every religion is always kind of trying to point out, well, this is what we are and we're not at all like everyone else. And I think we are, as pagans, some of the groups that were meant to be referred to with that not magic, not mysticism comment. And so I just thought it was pretty interesting that what they're talking about actually is the way that I personally think of my religion. And as L. Ron Hubbard states on the website, there is some of his writing, and a quote from him is, "Nothing in Scientology is true for you unless you have observed it and it is true according to your observation." Other things on the website talk about what they believe and some practices and things like that. There is a focus on the spirit, not on the body or the mind. They think of people as being spirits who have a body and have a mind, rather than being a body and a mind that has a spirit. They believe that man is an immortal spiritual being, and that experience goes beyond a single lifetime, so they believe in reincarnation. And they also believe in a supreme being. The website talks about the practice of auditing, which has to do with dealing with your negative experiences in order to move on beyond them into a higher state of being, because they strive for no negativity whatsoever, which all these things sound really great. It was really hard for me to find different things that I wanted to learn about on the website. A lot of the pages were repetitive, and I felt like I was reading the same points over and over, just with little things added into each article. So I quickly moved on to the Wikipedia article on Scientology, because I knew that it would have some of the pros and cons as well. So the Scientology article on Wikipedia says that some countries, such as Canada, France, Germany, and the UK, consider it not a religion, but a profit-making enterprise. Churches are allowed, they consider it a for-profit. The United States recognizes Scientology as a religion since the IRS gave it tax-exempt status. But elsewhere in the Wikipedia article, a scholar states that the United States views it not as a religion, but as a charitable organization due to its religious claims. The Scientology website said that conversion is not as important as the individual applying the practices to their life and benefiting from it, but the Wikipedia article talks about how Scientology keeps really strict copyrights on symbols and practices, and they have shut down anyone that attempts to practice independently of the church itself. Like, if you actually set up your own auditing practice, they will shut that down. If you publish any one of their copyrighted symbols without their permission, of course they can, and that's just copyright law. You're not supposed to do that without permission, so that's obvious. And the church files or has filed, quote, countless lawsuits against governments, organizations, and individuals, end quote. There's a lot of controversy about this religion, and I'm sure you've heard of some of it, but the Wikipedia article talks about others, so there, and I am looking at my notes, obviously. So there's controversy over the fact that some people view this as a brainwashing religion, and there is financial abuse of their members, quote, charging exorbitant fees for its spiritual services, end quote. The article also says that some teachings are not revealed until practitioners have paid thousands of dollars to the church. And Scientologists also believe that, quote, psychiatry is destructive and abusive and must be abolished, end quote. Other controversies listed in the article include, but are not limited to, their policy where, quote, members are encouraged to cut off all contact with friends or family members who are antagonistic to Scientology, end quote. Quote, criminal activities committed on behalf of the church or directed by church officials, such as Operation Snow White and Operation Freakout, end quote. And, quote, attempts to legally force search engines such as Google and Yahoo to omit any web pages critical of Scientology from their search engines, and in Google's case, AdSense, or at least the first few search pages, end quote. In any case, like, even on YouTube, I get comments from people. If I get a really nasty, mean, derogatory comment, it's hate speech toward my religion, that can be reported to YouTube. If we delete, I mean, you guys have probably experienced this too, if we delete those comments, which are so harsh and outright, misinformation and hate speech, people accuse us of quieting the opposition in order to make ourselves look better and not letting people see the other side of the story and things like that. So that's obviously a big controversy if they actually legally force search engines, that's the quote, to not include any search results that show opposition. From there, I went on to a website that's actually run by ex-Scientologists. It's called Ex-Scientology Kids, and they refer to it as ESK. The website is run by ex-Scientologists who left the community for various reasons. One of them is actually the niece of the current leader of the Church of Scientology. She spoke out about the fact of the disconnection policy when someone in the media reported that there's no such thing, that doesn't exist. She spoke out and told her story about how the disconnection policy affected her, and there are lots of other stories about it as well that they have. The ESK site openly recognizes that various things in Scientology are not meant to be spoken of, and they encourage that on this site it should be open discussion. It can be anonymous. They have a place where you can talk anonymously. Seriously read the glossary, because if you don't know any of the terminology already, there's a lot of terminology and abbreviations and things that I was just like, what are they talking about? And some of it I could gather through context, but some things still I was like, I have no idea what this means, and then I found the glossary. So, but basically the ESK website, they have a lot to say about, it's all in their personal words, but they have a lot to say about what really happened to them, how they feel about the practices and beliefs, and other people who have been able to get out of the community. They have links to personal testimonials, and they cover a lot of responses to typical Scientology arguments. And I really like that they openly state, there's parts to Scientologists like, oh, we know that you're not supposed to see this certain stuff until you reach a certain time in your practice, so we've put that totally off to the side, and it'll be very clear where that is so you can avoid it if you don't want to, and things like that. So there's no spoilers for their own spiritual practice. They understand that there are people who are still in the community, and that people really do believe these things. So I think the ESK website, they're really good about, if this is really what you believe, awesome for you. That's okay. We're just sharing why it wasn't right for us and why it should be okay for other people to find it not right for them and be able to leave. Like me, the way I feel about it, they're not against what Scientologists believe. They're against the mistreatment of individuals and some things that they actually do, and they're very open about why they think that it's a dangerous environment. A lot of them were, brought up in it from a very young age where they didn't get to know anything else until they got out. So the language of the site is just very understanding to people who are still in the community and want to be in the community, as well as people who are still in the community and are starting to have doubts but don't know how to express that. So overall, I have to say that the the actual core goals described in the Scientology website of, trying to become the best person that you can be, getting rid of negativity, helping the world, and so on, these are all very admirable things. You look at this website and you think this is a good thing to be working toward. The way that it seems that it's actually gone about, however, is not something that I am particularly interested in personally. I do think it's important to see all sides of a story, and that's why I went to the Scientology website, and then I went to Wikipedia, and then I went to the ex-Scientology kids, because I think that a critical website is one thing. If a bunch of non-Scientologists, people who had never been in the community, wanted to post criticism, okay, that's great, but I think you do learn a lot more from people who were actually in the community and know what happens inside the community, and now they can talk about it because they're not in it anymore. But I think it's important to see all those sides of the story. You want to know, what is the religion actually saying about itself? What are the arguments against it? What are their rebuttals? And make the choice for yourself. I think that's what's really important here. Like the viewer who suggested this topic, I also have trouble with, my overall belief of you can believe what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anyone, and wanting to accept other people's religious beliefs, because other people's religious beliefs, I might just disagree with them, but they're not hurting me and they're not hurting anyone else. But there are certain beliefs and practices of other religions that do actually harm people, or the way that they treat people is wrong. And so things like that, I feel like I can't accept those parts of those religions, because I don't think anyone has the right to treat people badly or do things against someone's will and things like that. Or, for example, if someone's religious belief was to kill another person who doesn't believe the same way, I don't respect that, because that hurts people. So, I struggle with that kind of thing too. Things that are just strictly beliefs, like the way that you want to go about your own spiritual enlightenment, that's cool with me. But once you start harming yourself or harming others, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, that's where I do start to have a problem with it. So I understand how you're feeling a little bit, icky about the whole situation. Scientology does fit the definition of a religion, so I understand why various countries have said, yeah, okay, it's a religion. And it actually is an institutionalized system, a lot more like the typical religions that other people think of than a couple weeks ago when we were talking about religion versus spirituality, and I was defending that paganism is a religion because even if it's not institutionalized, a personal set of beliefs and practices counts as a religion. So this actually is the institutionalized system, what people think of more as religion. The only difference is that this one does appear to be a lot more commercial, and it is recognized as commercial in those places, like I said. Some countries have not recognized it as a religion, but it has tax-exempt status, or it's a charitable organization, things like that. So yeah, it's a religion. It's not one that I personally agree with, but I don't agree with every religion out there. I think that people should always be able to choose based on looking at all of the information they can, and if you do all the research you can and you choose to join any religion, awesome. But I don't necessarily like that kids are raised in certain religions and they're not allowed to explore anything else, and so they don't get a chance to know what they personally truly believe if they had been given the opportunity. And the other thing that bothers me about certain religions is the secrecy, the idea that you can only know certain things about the religion once you've reached a certain level, or once you've paid enough money, or once you've been in it for a certain amount of years and things like that. Because I just personally think that a lot of misunderstanding comes from keeping things secret and not having that transparency. And even if you're not doing anything wrong, the fact that you're hiding it makes people think you're doing something wrong, So it's just the way that you handle things. If you're open about it, I was watching this show the other day. It's called Baggage. It's a dating show where you choose the person that you want to date based on their baggage, based on the bad stuff about them. And so, I think that's a cool concept, because even though these guys are saying bad things about themselves, they're being honest, and so then you get to choose knowing their worst side. I think that's kind of related here. I really do. Sorry my camera died, but that was my last point. I feel that even if you have some bad things, being open about them is a lot easier, because then you can deal with it right from the get-go. So I just think the secrecy aspect is difficult for any religion because it does breed misunderstanding. Talk about a personal search for truth. So I will see you guys next month, because next week is Subs Week. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.